And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
RK writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com and says, "Hey, Randy, I know you don't take requests, but if there's any way you could work into the show Queen Elizabeth quoting Ricardo Lara, we'd really appreciate it." You got it.
I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say.
Now, just to put it in proper context, can we play Ricardo Lara saying that in his own words and then play the Queen saying it one more time?
Yes, let me just pull that up. Here we go. This was Ricardo Lara at that insurance crisis conference last week.
And I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say.
And now let's hear Queen Elizabeth say it.
I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number, 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. She is the Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton, Professor Barbara Stone.
Good afternoon, John. That was quite a lead-in. Thanks, buddy.
Hey, it was the insurance commissioner who said it, not me.
Okay.
Well, and Queen Elizabeth did too, but that was AI.
Yeah, no. I got that part. I'm slow, but...
Well, I mean, if we wanted her to say it now outside of AI, it would have to be the Ouija board.
Yeah, let's not go there.
All right. Let's start out by playing the sound of former L.A. Mayor Antonio Villaraigosa, who is a candidate for governor here in the state of California, and he is posturing himself as a Democratic candidate who is willing to go after other Democratic candidates, including the frontrunner, former Vice President Kamala Harris.
I can't believe what I've been reading and seeing in the news about the Biden cover-up. I'm wondering of the people in the cabinet sitting in meetings with President Biden, how they didn't know what was going on. We all saw it in the debate. This is a massive problem that directly led to a second Donald Trump term, and as a result, all Californians are paying the price. Now Harris and Becerra are talking about leading the state of California as a possible candidate for governor. But California voters deserve to know. What did you know? When did you know it? And why didn't you speak up? Today, I'm calling on Kamala Harris and Javier Becerra to make themselves available to the press and voters, because there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
Professor Stone, what do you make of that?
I think that is so cool, I couldn't have made it up. At a couple of different levels. By the way, Antonio Villaraigosa is getting serious attention. This will bring him more attention. And while it's hard for me to imagine him as much of a viable candidate, if you go name ID among the Democrats, John, I'll bet you he's number two after Kamala, because nobody's ever heard of any of those other people. So he's enjoying his day in the sun. And if it doesn't win for him, that's the way it goes. He's lost many times before. In terms of the two he's going after, one of them, I know the answer, and I don't think he can say it, because Javier Becerra, Baccaria being what the president thought his name was, can't say what he saw in cabinet meetings, because I suspect you will find he never saw the president. His defense is, how was I supposed to know? The guy never talked to me, which doesn't exactly build you up in terms of a statewide candidate. Kamala, it's a really good question. And we, by that I mean Republicans, should pay attention to how this plays out, because it's not just, ooh, she probably knew, but that to other Democrats, she gave you Donald Trump. People who knew gave you Donald Trump because you didn't get Biden out when he should have gotten out. And what's interesting on that is, of course, she couldn't have done any such thing Because if they had open real primaries, I can see Democrats never have nominated Kamala, because who wants Kamala? So basically, they're in a wonderful little maze here, and I'm enjoying it. Just our people should pay attention to what seems to work, what doesn't seem to work, and be ready to go forward.
How do you think Democratic voters are going to respond to this? Because they could go one of two ways. They could say, you know what, Antonio's right. Because all of the people around Joe Biden, including Kamala Harris, didn't shoot straight with us, we ended up with not one, but two unelectable choices, and only two, where the cake was already baked before that campaign started, and we were going to lose because of decisions that they made and their poor judgment. Or they could say, she's our Democratic vice president. She's the first person of color, woman of color, to serve as vice president. Don't you dare say anything bad about her.
I have a couple of things. I agree with your first point by far the most. The only thing is what. Remember, John, I'm going to approach this almost completely as a Republican partisan, so I'll probably miss some points. But as a Republican partisan sitting here, what I'm aiming for is not to persuade the Democrats that are listening to this back and forth to vote Republican. I'm trying to persuade them to stay home. That they think what you just said, and yeah, what she did, and yeah, she gave us Donald Trump, and yeah, I mean, she should suffer for that. However, I just can't vote for a Republican, but what you can do is stay home. And that's what you're aiming for there, I think. And the ones who go the woman of color bit, that's going to be another approach to things, although there are going to be a lot of them that are that way. California is complicated that way. I was thinking about that this morning, actually. And Kamala has run as a black candidate. You realize if you're talking about broad ethnic classifications, that's the smallest running in this state. So if you want to play that game, yeah, Maxine Waters will be with her all the way. Barbara Lee will be with her all the way. Not at all clear to me that your various Latino and Asian office holders are going to think that way. So it gets into all kinds of complicated things. You got to figure out what it is you want and where you want to go. But Antonio's enjoying himself. He's got some really good things to say. He's going to defend some Democrats. Some Democrats are going to believe him, and we need to build on it.
We're speaking with Professor Barbara Stone. Professor Stone, Bill Maher, the comedian and talk show host, has been very visibly moving to the center from way out on the left, which is where he was for a long period of time, including complaining to California Governor Gavin Newsom about how cumbersome it is to put solar panels on the roof of his house. He tried to do it, and he ran into 9 million different regulations, and they turned it into a massive pain in the ass for something that the state is allegedly encouraging us to do that would benefit all of us and give us a green economy and the whole bit. And now, in recent days, he's been the victim of at least two crimes where he has two different pot shops in L.A., one in Santa Monica and one in West Hollywood. Both of them were knocked off in a short period of time. There was a shootout at one of them between one of his security guards and the robbers. I believe that one was in Santa Monica. And I'm sure Bill Maher is not happy about that. My guess is if he complained about the solar panels, he'll complain about this too. When you listen to him speak on the issues, issue by issue, the man makes a lot of sense, whether he's talking about the regulations, whether he talks about crime, homelessness, whatever the case may be. But I bet you anything, even though he understands that the Democrats have failed us on all of those subjects in California, I bet you anything he votes a straight party line. How do you get those people who know better, people who experience all of these failures and are punished because of those failures on a daily basis, and they know who did that, but they still vote for them every time they have the opportunity?
you don't get them. That's what happens. I'm here going after the low information. I don't really think about party. I living my life. I'm going after those people. I'm not going after the Bill Maher's. Although I have a theory on what he's doing here. The Bill Maher's of the world are Democrats because they have philosophical attachments to what they believe the Democrat Party stands for. And you are not ever going to change them. All his stuff, and this is my guess, John. I am literally making this up. The man's never said hello to me. My best guess is what you've got is because he actually does things like try to put solar panels on his roof, like try to have small businesses, even if they're pot shops, that he's, I'll use the word suffering, what comes from the policies, and he's looking and going, darn, my people are wrong. Real people are seeing what we're advocating this way, and if we don't change, the real people won't vote for us. And that's the source of it. If you listen to him, he's not going, anything's wrong with the Democrats other than their messaging, which they love talking about. And he's strongly suggesting they need to change their messaging because real people are experiencing things in ways that are going to cost them votes. I think he's probably right. We're going after those people who are experiencing it in real life, but he himself is never going to change.
What's the old saying? A conservative is a liberal who got mugged. And in the old days, I think, that was kind of the idea as to how we won people over. When they experienced the failures of the other side, they saw the light and they moved on over. And that doesn't happen anymore.
Well, at my advanced age, I've changed my interpretation of that because I used to say it too. And I think I would change it these days to a Republican is a Democrat who got mugged. True liberals, my dear, just don't change. They have a philosophical commitment that you're just not going to get them away from. But we don't need them if we can go after real people who pay the real price for all this garbage.
Okay, to that point, we know that a lot of the people that you just described turned out and voted for Donald Trump in this last election. Usually what happens is if turnout is high, that benefits the Democrats. If turnout is low, that benefits the Republicans. Because of Donald Trump's unique appeal, the opposite was true. High voter turnout benefited him. Now, the problem is if you're not a reliable, regular voter, do you do things like vote in primaries or vote in midterm elections or vote in off-year local elections? And the answer is usually no. Are Republicans going to have a hard time getting that coalition to turn out in the midterms or in the primary elections when you need them almost just as much as you need them in the presidential?
The answer is yes, it's going to be tough. Doesn't mean it can't happen, but it's going to be tough. And if you want to overlay that with one additional little thought, yes, Trump ran much, much better in California. And you can find where the votes were, and it's wildly encouraging. Other Republicans did not. There is currently one Republican member of the House of Representatives from Orange County. Going into the election without thinking too hard, I can think of 3. Now there's 1. Several other seats were lost. So someone's got to do some serious thinking because it seems to have been too specific to Trump. And isn't that funny, John? We can't have that. They need to start with really liking Trump. But as you say, when Trump's not on the ballot, 1, they're not going to turn out because they were liking Trump. But 2, it doesn't really get you to other people, and we just proved it. But 3, you have to somehow find a way to plug into it so it does get to other people. And it's going to be a major challenge. Now, having said that, the way the Democrats have fouled up this state, they have left so many openings. That's why I'm going to listen to Antonio for the first time in 30 years. That you should, if we can't make hay out of this, then we should just somewhere retire, because there are all kinds of openings. One of the problems always is raising enough money to get it out, which I hope we have a good gubernatorial candidate, or at least one that will be heard whether he wins or not. But if we can't do it now, John, it's going to be a long, cold winter.
Professor Barbara Stone, Professor of Political Science Emeritus at California State University at Fullerton. Thank you so much for stopping by.
My pleasure.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Al writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. He's going through absolutely withdrawal. Come on, guys. I'm just jonesing for another dose of Sheng Tao Absolutely here on the port on the ship day. This guy works at the Port of Oakland, and he needs to hear this every day.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That one's for you, Al, and everyone at the Port of Oakland.
Well, what's the saying? An apple a day keeps the doctor away? He needs an absolutely a day.
Absolutely.
And now that we've hit the halfway point of today's show, Randy, if you want to continue listening to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
Let's say you yourself are going through a Sheng Tao withdrawal, as we all are sometimes. Go look at the backlog.
And he said absolutely.
Search for The John Phillips Show wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's the Apple Podcast app,
Absolutely.
the iHeartRadio, Spotify app. Search for The John Phillips Show. Hit subscribe. You could download all the episodes. And share them with your friends as well. And if you happen to be a member of a Facebook group that talks about local issues, put some of the shows in there. Somebody posted an episode of the show where John interviewed Seneca Scott on the Coalition for a Better Oakland Facebook group. You know what I think about that?
That's right. I like that. That was amazing.
In the meantime, what do you say we make a couple of listeners very happy?
Well, let's do that right now. 790 KABC welcomes the Beach Boys with special guest John Stamos at the Long Beach Terrace Theater on August 10th. Tickets are on sale Friday at Ticketmaster.com. But right now, caller number 9 at 1-888-795-2222 gets a pair of tickets to the show. Tickets furnished by Nederlander Concerts. Good luck dialing.
Yesterday, we told you that about a week after California Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara approved yet another rate increase for California homeowners to the company State Farm, which is the largest insurance company in the state of California, they're already knocking on his door asking for another rate increase.
They want that full 30% they asked for last year before the fires. And then when everyone was paying attention to all of State Farm's practices, like dropping all the homeowners in the Palisades fire and putting them on the FAIR plan, they realized they weren't going to get a 30% rate hike through. So let's get a 17% rate hike through. And then after that happens, let's immediately ask for another 13%. For more, here is ABC 7 in the Bay Area and the incredible Stephanie Sierra.
State Farm wants to raise property insurance rates again.
This announcement comes just a week after California's insurance commissioner approved the company's request to increase premiums as high as 38%.
This is a man who does not care about getting elected for anything, which should scare you.
No, and it would be to our benefit if he was running for another office. Because if he was running for lieutenant governor or the LA County Board of Supervisors, which was the rumor, then we could have a way to punish him. But if he's just getting out of politics altogether, he's going to sell everything that's not nailed down before he goes.
I mean, just listen to how defiant he was last week at that seminar about the insurance crisis.
I may be criticized and dragged through the mud for it and get my wig snatched, as the gay guys say.
Oh, that was the wrong clip.
Well, I think they got the point.
7 on your side, Stephanie Sierra continues to follow the story for us. Steph, again.
Yeah, here it is, Kristen and Larry. Just to be clear.
Although he does kind of gallivant himself around like a Queen of England would.
Well, if you can't be knocked out of office, which is the case in a one-party state, I guess you're kind of like a monarch.
Yeah, here it is, Kristen and Larry. Just to be clear, this request is in addition to what's already approved. And if granted, it would give State Farm the rate hikes they originally asked for last June. And
Remember the ones that said, oh, we did the math, we don't actually need the 30%? Yeah, that was BS.
No, they're just trying to find a way that politically they can get it through.
And these are substantial increases. Here's a breakdown of the numbers. Starting in June, State Farm will raise insurance premiums by 17% for California homeowners. If this latest request is granted, the company could push that figure as high as 30% by next year.
Expect another call from your broker.
Literally right before we signed on the air yesterday, that's when the phone rang.
Meanwhile, California condo owners and renters will face a 15% increase this June. But this latest request could raise that figure next year to 36% for condos and 52% for renters.
A 52% increase for rental insurance?
And he ran as the consumer-friendly candidate.
This is a real issue. The company hasn't produced the documents it needs to show that these rates are justified, and yet they're getting the rate hike anyway.
Well, of course, because Ricardo Lara doesn't care anymore.
At this point, I think they're undershooting what they could get. Why not ask for a full 30% increase now?
Well, they've still got a year and a half. You know that they're going to ask for yet another one before Ricardo Lara's term is up.
I think that's what will come about a week after they get this one approved.
And now they want more. That's just greedy. It's just plain greedy.
Consumer Watchdog is the only group fighting the rate hikes, arguing policyholders should not have to pay for State Farm's mismanagement.
I don't think the commissioner has answered that. I think he's just giving in to whatever the company wants.
State Farm's latest...
And why would he do that? What would be his interest in giving State Farm everything that they want when he's openly admitting he's not running for any other office? Gee, I wonder what the connection there is.
Maybe he wants to see DJ Kitty Glitter again.
State Farm's latest request includes no change in the rate hikes for rental dwellings, which are policies that protect landlords who rent out their homes. Those properties will face a 38% rate hike this June.
That wasn't going to go any. Were they really going to ask for something higher than 38% for that?
Of course not.
That was approved earlier this month.
By the way, this trickles down to an increase in how much it costs to buy a home and how much it costs to rent anything.
Everything in the state of California is expensive, in part because you have to insure things like businesses, like homes, like condos, those sorts of things. Renters need to, in part, pay for the insurance on the property. When insurance goes up, the cost of everything goes up.
The company responded saying the interim hike only addressed part of their needs, saying, quote, the overall request of 30% would not be on top of the 17% interim rate change.
We're only asking for 13% more of the rate hike that we just got. We're not greedy.
You're like Pip from Great Expectations. Please, sir, can I have some more?
State Farm General is still pursuing the full rate request. Last week, it was described as a critical first step to continue serving California customers.
They're not even saying that they're going to stay in the market and continue to sell after next year. So we're not getting anything.
And what we're seeing is not only are they not paying out claims in the Palisades, for the people that want to rebuild, they're not writing new policies.
No, who benefits from this? If your home burned down in a fire and your insurance company won't pay up and they drop you from the policy, and then the rest of us see our rates go up because they say they have to pay for all the people in the Palisades, but they're not getting any money. At some point, there's a hole in the argument.
Now, none of these new figures are set in stone. All of them will have to be discussed during the next hearing in October, where State Farm will be expected to justify these requests with data. So,
does this make any sense to you? They ask for this emergency rate hike. Ricardo Lara says yes, but only after a hearing. Except he already said yes. He doesn't show up at the hearing. State Farm doesn't provide any of the data that they said they would provide for it. Ricardo Lara still says yes. The rate goes into effect in June, and State Farm has until October to provide the documents justifying the rate hike they just got.
On what planet does that make sense?
California. That's where that makes sense.
where State Farm will be expected to justify these requests with data. So we'll see.
Ongoing situation. What does the commissioner have to say about?
I mean, as much as people want to say, and there is truth to it, that California's insurance market is completely overregulated, currently the problem is the regulator is corrupt as hell.
Yes, it was co-opted by the industry.
Ongoing situation. What does the commissioner have to say about this? And you've done a number of stories on Commissioner Lara.
Yeah, Larry, Commissioner Lara did issue a statement in response saying, we want more data, more transparency, and more policies written in wildfire distressed areas. He also...
They're not doing any of that, and they didn't give you any of the data.
No, they're also not paying out on their contracts, the contracts that they are obligated to pay out on in the Palisades and Altadena and Malibu, and he's not leaning on them to do it.
We want more.
That's literally what the job of the insurance commissioner is. If they're not fulfilling their end of a contract, he's supposed to make sure they do, and he's not doing anything.
We want more data, more transparency, and more policies written in wildfire distressed areas. He also added State Farm wanting this rate increase does not change the law. Yet critics point out the irony in that statement, arguing the commissioner is the one who is not following the law right now by allowing for State Farm to do this before justifying it's needed.
Yeah, of all the talk about Prop 103, the person violating it right now is Ricardo Lara by giving out these rate hikes without any data to back it up.
And the legislature is supposed to provide oversight on the California Department of Insurance. However, frequently when they have these oversight hearings, he doesn't even show up.
This is an issue where no one in the legislature or the governor's office wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So they figure, let Lara do whatever the hell he's going to do. We can blame it on him when it all blows up.
And he's getting out of politics. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
Al in Napa writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. California's insurance is edgy and astronomical. I have State Farm. Our home is in a suburban area 4 miles west of downtown Napa. The 2017 fire stopped a half mile from our neighborhood. They gave us a $50 deduct refund in November due to total fire-safe structure and landscape. Then last month raised the premium $350, and next year we'll raise it by another $400. Does our glorious insurance commissioner deserve to have his wig snatched? Absolutely.
Well, and it's even worse than that because we have these policies, but we can't use them. You know, if you use it, you're going to be dropped. And if you file a claim, they're going to fight every claim you make tooth and nail. And they're going to want to settle for far less than whatever it is that you're owed. So what's the point of even having it outside of satisfying the requirement with the bank because of your loan?
That's all it is. It's insurance in name only.
There's got to be a better way. Now, speaking of fires, we still don't know the official cause of the fire that burnt down the Pacific Palisades. However, Randy, we now have a new theory.
That's because, and we've told you about this, there was a fire that was started by fireworks in the Palisades on New Year's Eve, just a few days before the fires. And what do you know? There is now video showing where ignition may have taken place in the exact same spot where there may have been embers from a hot spot that may have just started blowing with the wind, and that may have what started the fire. That's right. We might be able to tie this thing all the way back to fireworks.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that fireworks have started a fire.
Although this one wasn't a gender reveal party. For more, here's ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
5 months after the Palisades fire, a lot of questions as to just how it started.
And I don't know if they'll ever give us an official reason. We're still waiting 2.5 years later for an official reason as to what burned down the 10 freeway.
No, if we get an official reason, it's going to be because someone blames Southern California Edison and they have a financial incentive in finding someone other than them to blame.
Reporter Kevin Ozebek joins us now with new video that shows how possible fireworks may be behind the destructive fire. Kevin?
Well, Mark and Ellen, we're about to show you videos first obtained by the San Francisco Chronicle. Some fire investigators believe it's clear.
Love how the Chronicle's investigating this and not the LA Times.
So pathetic.
Chronicle. Some fire investigators believe it's clear video evidence that a New Year's fire likely rekindled into one of the most destructive fires in California history.
I think calling it a rekindle is a valid thing.
Retired fire investigator Terry Taylor has studied these two videos obtained by the San Francisco Chronicle side by side. This nighttime video is from right around midnight New Year's Day. You see a flash on the ground and then a fire erupts near the top of a hill. This small...
Gotta love that people that have done well enough to live in a place like the Palisades are still dumb enough to launch fireworks in a brush-filled area.
Who does that?
This is Los Angeles. For some reason, there is this reptilian urge to blow things up all the time.
It's like we all saw one Michael Bay movie and we want to do it ourselves.
This small brush fire, dubbed the Lockman Fire, sparked after neighbors say they heard fireworks.
We were in the neighborhood in the morning of New Year's, and we heard some fireworks going off around us.
And here's what that same UC San Diego camera captured around 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, January 7th. These first flames exploded into the Palisades fire.
The same exact spot.
Can you imagine if you were one of those idiots that was out there launching fireworks on New Year's and you're watching the news or listening to the news today and you now hear this? What's going on in your stomach right now?
Let's show you them side by side again. Some experts, like Taylor, think these videos support the theory that the Palisades fire started from a still smothering hot pocket left behind from that New Year's Day fire.
It's certainly a good supposition.
The theory is nothing new. Just days after the LA fires, 7 on Your Side Investigates showed you these side-by-side satellite images showing the burn scar from January 1st and the beginning of what would be the behemoth Palisades fire 6 days later.
Same exact spot.
Yeah, this is looking pretty damning.
Just listen to what this Palisades homeowner told us.
Is there a connection? 100% there's a connection. Standing in the exact same X mark, looking in the same direction, you'll see the same cloud of smoke in the exact same spot.
Both fires remain under investigation.
Who is that? Petros Papadakis?
No, because he lives in San Pedro.
I see.
Both fires remain under investigation. So the question of did LAFD miss a hot spot remains. Acting Fire Chief Ronnie Villanueva told us today he doesn't want a Monday morning quarterback because he wasn't chief when either fire sparked.
Maybe this is why Karen Bass fired the fire chief, because that way no one can answer questions about what happened because, it wasn't my job.
That was a previous administration.
Hey, Chief. Can we ask you a few questions about this new reporting potentially linking the Lockman to Palisades fire?
I wasn't even there.
What'd you say?
I wasn't even in this position.
I wasn't in charge. I can't say anything.
How convenient.
And if I make Karen Bass look bad, I'll get fired.
The only thing that any of them care about is not being blamed.
Yep.